This is DETOUR, the best stories in Black travel.
This is Excursions with Gina Arias, Cuba edition, Part 5. Another must-meet figure we were told to speak with was DJ Raymel, a longtime fixture in the Cuban hip-hop community who is a producer besides being a DJ and is now a mentor to younger artists. When we finally arrived at the home of the talented DJ and his wife, we were surprised with what we found inside. High-end DJ and production equipment in a humble living space.
Primeramente, dime tu nombre, también cuánto tiempo tiene haciendo este tipo de música.
How long have you been making hip-hop music and why did you choose this genre?
I've been making hip-hop music for about 15 years, and its sound attracted me right away, and it was something that completely changed my life. I owe a lot to hip-hop, so if there were a genre that I were to defend, it would always be hip-hop. Even though I like reggae, funk, dancehall, and many others, but hip-hop is what stayed with me.
Con respecto a la escena de hip-hop aquí.
What are your hopes for the Cuban hip-hop community?
What I want most for the hip-hop community here in Cuba is the elimination of censorship and that fear that people have with regard to hip-hop culture. In Cuba, everything is directed by the government, so it has made communications difficult, and in general, the government doesn't really support rap music as a legitimate genre. It sees it more as a threat. MCs touch upon social themes, but Cuban people live day to day in the hood. The Cuban government doesn't want to acknowledge the bad things that we have here. So they paint a picture as if Cuba is a paradise, when in reality there are problems here too. A lot of good things, yes, we have to acknowledge them, but there are things that are wrong and we have to speak on that as well, because if we don't, we won't be able to find the solutions to those problems.
So how does the Cuban hip-hop community meet those challenges?
Artists meet those challenges by doing their own thing independently, in underground studios like this one, or even more underground than this one, and distributing their music in the streets, attempting to perform in the homes of friends or in some spaces where we are allowed to perform in a limited way. That's when we seize our opportunity.
What is your vision for Cuban hip-hop?
Cuban rap is well known throughout Latin America and has a lot of prestige, so it's sad that in other parts of the world, folks know more about Cuban hip-hop than people here do. So I and all that defend hip-hop culture dream about spreading our music within Cuba more than is currently happening. The Cuban people in general don't really understand what hip-hop is, and they have an image in their mind that is not accurate. So we would like to be better understood here in Cuba.
So you don't hear too much hip-hop on the radio here?
Hip-hop isn't heard on the radio at all, on any station. Neither is reggae. And there is a lot of good Cuban reggae, but it isn't heard.
One phrase that we heard repeated a lot in Cuba was "es complicado," it's complicated. Hip-hop is a historically defiant, anti-establishment genre of music. And in Cuba, like everywhere else in the world, being loudly anti-establishment could have serious consequences. Yet in Cuba, there exists an entire government agency dedicated to hip-hop. The Agency of Rap may not be as well-funded or prioritized as other state institutions, but it exists. On the other hand, we were told that hip-hop is not heard on the radio at all, on any station. And we heard from several people, including DJ Raymel, about the difficulty of accessing the internet. This concept may be difficult to understand, but every cafe, restaurant, and public space you step into does not have Wi-Fi. Fancy hotels and public parks have Wi-Fi for a fee of 1 to 5 CUC per hour. At the time of our visit, the average salary was 10 CUC per month, about $10 US.
With those 10 CUC per month, you have to eat, bathe, dress yourself, transport yourself, and 1 hour of Wi-Fi. And bad Wi-Fi at that is 1.5 CUC, you understand? So it's complicated.
So how do you justify uploading your music to SoundCloud or YouTube using 1/10 of what you make per month? Jimmy Con Clase shared that he felt that internet access, even more so than other forms of media, will be the key that allows Cuban hip-hop to enter into the 21st century. Now, hip-hop is a male-dominated genre and one steeped in misogyny. But in Cuba, we found women who were forging a path for themselves and on their own terms. And despite the imperfections of hip-hop culture, we heard people express hope for the potential of hip-hop in transforming Cuban society. Yeah, es complicado. Our deepest thanks to all of the Cuban artists who took time out of their day to share their stories. Special thanks to J.D. Acere for spending several days being our steadfast and patient hip-hop guide, and to Rod Stars of Rebel Diaz for connecting us to some of the Cuban artists that were interviewed. Voiceovers were provided by Miguel, aka Miggs, Jekka, Reina Moreno, Emma Lee, Rhinoceros Funk, Yazid, and Inticana. Music was provided by Conciencia, La Reina y La Real, Primera Base, Fred Ones, Jimmy Con Clase, and DJ Raymel. Audio engineering and sound design was provided by Fred Ones. This is a listener-sponsored program. We welcome you to join us in these efforts to tell our stories of music, community, and resistance by dropping some coins in the virtual hat via Zelle to onexcursions@gmail.com. That's onexcursions@gmail.com. Thank you in advance. This has been a Fred One Arts and Baby G production. Peace.